And the next question I had was actually from a women's health physiotherapist in Adelaide. Hi, Wendy. She was asking if there's anything that women can do if they become constantly orgasmic during ordinary daily activities in pregnancy. Now, I've not heard of this. I didn't know this could happen, but she said it was, she had a client recently. She said it's actually really quite unpleasant, and she wanted to, stop this from happening.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something you've come across?
So I think what she's describing is it's had a lot of names. I think the name that's kind of fallen with it now is called persistent arousal syndrome, and it's basically a central sensitization, of that system. Mm-hmm. So we have an arousal system that's kind of governed by the pudendal nerve and other factors. And oftentimes, I think we think of when we get into a sensitive nervous system type problem, that we often kind of only associate it with sympathetic drivers, which are, for those who are not physios, those are our stress responses, our fight and flight, our like have to run like hell or kill the lion type of response. But we have that other response, which is, being aroused, because that's what attracts us sexually to our partners and allows us to propagate and keep the tribe going. That's survival in the long term. But we can have, both of those areas can kind of go wrong and get very sensitive. It doesn't necessarily have to come on in pregnancy.
That was going to be my question.
Because certainly I've seen this in many women at many stages of their life. It doesn't really seem to have any kind of a known their risk factors or etiology are really kind of unknown with this group.
Okay.
I do know that when we have something that kind of hangs on persistently like that and is very uncomfortable and isn't relieved with the act of orgasm or masturbation, that, that's kind of, it's a bit of the sensitive nervous system gone a little bit wrong.
Okay.
For whatever reason it's coming on, it may not seem protective in nature, but it may be. Because it's kind of an interesting place to have our protector meter or brain kind of turn on and keep things going. But, there's a lot of activity and action that happens down around the urethra and clitoral area. It's certainly, near the area where we empty our urine all the time, or if we're holding back on, not going to the bathroom, or perhaps maybe, which we've seen sometimes in chronic UTIs, chronic bladder infections, that no longer have to have a bladder infection to trigger off the pain.
Yeah. Rewiring going on.
Right. It could be something that may have, been a cause of either some trauma or, could be some, chronic UTIs that were just maybe mismanaged a little bit. I think in the States, certainly, I don't know about Australia, they tend to just throw the book of antibiotics at these people.
Yeah.
And over time, that begins to change the flora and fauna of the whole vaginal region, as well as the whole GI region. So our bugs change. We tend to be a lot more sensitive to things like yeast overgrowth. And certain foods that may not have been a trigger before become triggers to a nervous system because they don't have the right bacteria to help, with the digestive process with that. So there, kind of tracing back some of those etiologies may be helpful if you want to put inputs in, like changing diet a little bit, going after, things that certainly I try to work with people to decrease the acidity of their food when they're in the throes of something like this, because that can drive, an inflammatory response lives in an acidotic system. So if we can get their system a little bit more alkaline, I think that's a good thing. And again, it may not even be an acid alkaline. It may just be a change, like you're used to eating this. It's now kind of turning against you. So maybe take it away for a little while.
Yeah.
And then everything settle down.
Reset
and if things settle down, then fine. Then after it settles down, kind of do a little test drive, from the elimination diet and pull it back in and see if you're okay. Because oftentimes maybe that's the issue too. So that's one big part, I think, kind of that may be driving it back there. The other piece of it that may be occurring is, if the baby is, I haven't really seen a lot of it in pregnancy, so I'm not so sure it's certainly not pregnancy specific.
Yeah.
But perhaps maybe the growth and development and hormonal changes with this particular pregnancy could have been something that could have fired off a sensitive nervous system that was just about ready to it was kind of holding its own. I can
It's
kind of do my
teetering.
cranberry. I can kind of do this. If I go to the bathroom after sex, I'm okay. But now I'm pregnant and things have changed and my belly's getting bigger and the baby's growing and there's pressure on the bladder. And somehow the brain has sorted that all out as being kind of a constant input. And now they've got this expression going on.
It'll be interesting to find out. We'll follow up with Wendy and find out if it disappears after the pregnancy and see whether in this particular case it is.
Yeah,
Maybe.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I think, when you look at something that's persistent, I think we have to kind of apply the same sorts of ideas that we do with the science of pain to that.
You got to come up to here.
We got to come up here, but we also have to look at inputs everywhere because we know that inputs can affect. So being able to maybe help her, kind of do some of the, brain calming things are very nice. But I think also take a look at the hips, take a look at the back, take a look at the pelvis. Maybe, if you can change, some postural strategies that they've kind of adopted and haven't really moved out of. There's no such thing as a bad posture, just one that we live in all the time. And our brain needs to have a few strategies, or it needs to remember that those strategies are fine for certain things, but maybe not for everything. And so sometimes if we can go in and get them, maybe if you just were able to relax your legs a little bit or change where you're back, how you're sitting, perhaps maybe when you're walking and moving, if that feels better to you or the symptoms decrease while you're doing that, then maybe you need to get up more. Kind of start looking at all those different inputs as they go in to see, if we can mitigate things, all through the system, we might have a better chance of kind of getting that system to ramp down.